So Chancellor Frenk, thank you so much for coming and speaking to us today. I know that we're here in the School of Music and we wanted to ask some questions about your first couple months in Westwood. Does that sound okay?
That sounds perfect.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, how are you enjoying your time in Westwood? What have these first couple of months been like?
Well, they've been very intense couple of months, actually almost 5 months now. Because, on my second day in the office, the wildfires erupted. So we had to switch to emergency response mode. And then when we were out of the acute phase of the wildfires, now we're engaged in the reconstruction, but out of the acute phase, we started getting all the barrage of federal orders and changes to the funding of research and all of those different measures, some of the actions that have gotten some of our students very nervous and worried, justifiably so. So we also had to then pivot to that, managing that. So in the middle of all of that, I think two things have emerged. First, when the wildfires erupted, I saw the magnitude of the challenge, and the same thing with the barrage of orders. I also saw the quality of the response, the way that bruins came together in the face of an external threat coming together. And that's been very stimulating for me. So I haven't had that much time to fully enjoy the campus, but I can tell you that already I love it. I just feel it's a wonderful, beautiful campus.
Okay.
Could you tell us a little bit about your favorite UCLA memory so far?
Well, I think the place I like the most is the sculpture garden, just because, first of all, the pieces, some of the pieces are extraordinary. I know of some of the authors. It's a very impressive collection. But the way it's landscaped, it's just an invitation to enter into a space of peace and reflection. And we need those spaces in this world. Now, in terms of a specific memory, actually, it's being kindled right this minute, because one of my favorite memories was being in this very room just before I started with a couple of students and a professor from the music school who have heard that I like opera, and they performed for my wife and me. We were here together in part of my visits as I was getting ready to become chancellor, and that was just a wonderful experience. It was captured in a story in the UCLA magazine, but the live experience of just having that early exposure of being here in this magnificent space, recording studio, and just witnessing the incredible talent of our students was just very invigorating.
Okay, so I know you just mentioned students. What's it been like meeting with students on campus and getting to know some of the students on our campus here in Westwood?
This is the best part of this job. This is, I always say no disrespect, but actually talking to students, interacting with students is the best part of the job. No disrespect to other groups, like my vice chancellors or the regents, or I meet with a lot of people. But students are actually this is why we work. They personify our legacy. They are the reason we get up in the morning and try to do our very best job. So the students have been very welcoming, very cordial. Because of the wildfires, I had an early exposure through the videos I was sending, just to keep the community calm, because in an emergency, if you don't say anything, people interpret the silence. They feel the silence with their worst fears. That's an experience I've had in emergencies. Because normally at this early stage, most people wouldn't even know who the chancellor is. I remember when I was a student, I wasn't particularly paying attention to those things. But because of those videos, then now it's more common that they recognize me, and they've been incredibly welcoming, and it's just been great.
Do you have any favorite memories of interacting with students on campus so far, or have you had any favorite moments of meeting with students?
Well, it's been, I will tell you what is the favorite. All of them have been great, but the favorite was the first time I went to Poly Pavilion to the women's basketball game, one of the women's basketball game, and the announcer said I was there, and the student section of the the stadium, of the pavilion, just were incredibly nice. I mean, they cheered and they were super nice. That's why I say that other than watching the student athletes play, the second thing that's most fun when I go to athletic events is watch the students who are not the ones who are playing, the ones who are watching the game. Because usually, you know, they're in a very good mood, they're in a festive mood, especially if we're winning. And so that was a great moment. We really, my wife and I really felt very welcome when we first went to that very first women's basketball game.
Yeah, we know you've been engaging in the listening exercise since becoming chancellor. Could you maybe talk a little bit about what you feel like you've learned from hearing the perspectives of students?
Yes. So I've completed now the listening exercise, but I'm going to do others. Okay. Just this first listening exercise, which was meant to be finished before the inauguration, mm-hmm. because my idea was that you know, in the inauguration, in the inaugural address, I'm trying to articulate a vision for the future of the university, but it's not my personal vision. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to encapsulate and reflect the collective vision that I heard. And that's why this first listening exercise was programmed to end before the inauguration. I've had 38 sessions. About 6,000 people have participated, most of them in person, some in hybrid formats that we've had. That has included every school, the colleges, the divisions of the college, every administrative unit, and then groups of students, different constituencies of students. So we also opened a web page so people could leave comments, suggestions, or questions. And we've received about 1,500 of those in that particular web page. So the two big messages I get is, first, there's an incredible pride of being a Bruin, and there's a sense that this is a wonderful place to be in, a strong connection to the institution. That's very, very encouraging. Second, there's a lot of nervousness and anxiety. There's a lot of sense that things are changing very quickly, and there's a lot of justified anxiety. And so in my inaugural speech, I try, first of all, to stimulate that first part, the pride, and secondly, not to deny or to wallpaper. The anxiety is legitimate and is real, but to tackle it head on with standing up for our values, with defending the things we feel, and with the certainty that we're going to come out of this, not just survive, but come out stronger if we do the right things. And that starts by becoming closer as a community, by healing some of the divides that we still have internally, by connecting to the outside world, and by standing for our values and our purpose as a university. So those, I would say, are the two. It's a little bit of a contrast. The light, the bright side of great pride, great sense of that UCLA is my place, is the place where I should be. At the same time, great level of uncertainty and anxiety, and we need to deal with both, stimulating one, and then providing some sense of purpose and direction, that we're not going to back down. We're going to continue moving forward with our values and our purpose, which is to educate brilliant young people so that they can make a big difference in the world.
Okay, I know that you've just undergone a big move coming here from Miami. What's it been like, you know, coming to Westwood? What are some of the differences between living in Westwood and also, I know you were in Miami for a couple of years?
Yeah, well, I was there for 9 years. Well, first of all, the weather is much better for me here because I was born and grew up in Mexico City, which is on the highlands of Mexico. So the weather is almost identical to the weather in the spring here in LA. Cool mornings, low humidity, you know, gets to whatever, upper 60s, low 70s in the middle of the day. That's the weather I'm used to. You don't need neither heating nor air conditioning. So the weather is better. Both cities, Miami and Los Angeles, are incredibly cosmopolitan. That is great. I like I like big cities because again, I was born in Mexico City. Los Angeles is twice the size of Miami, pretty much. So it's a bigger city. It has more nuance to it, more diversity. Although Miami is an incredibly diverse city, but LA is really unique. I mean, the fact that it's the home of the largest diasporas for so many groups of people, it's just an amazing thing. That includes Latinos, and that includes people of Mexican origin, but obviously that's not the only thing that I like. It's the fact that so many other groups are represented. Just the diversity of the city is, I think, unmatched. And because I've been so absorbed by dealing with the emergencies in these first 5 months, I haven't had a chance to fully enjoy all the riches of LA. But hopefully, as we move forward, I'll have a little bit more time to do that as well.
And talking about your move, we couldn't help but notice from social media that you brought your family horse with you to LA. Could you tell us a bit about that?
It's not mine, it's my wife's.
Fascinating, Cyrus.
I love horses, but I don't get on horses. It's like, I love watching sports, but I sadly don't practice any. No, we are great lovers of animals in general. We have 2 dogs and a cat in the house. And then my wife does take horseback riding seriously, not at any athletics level at all. But yeah, she brought her horse here, which is a superb and really amazing animal. But I just enjoy watching the videos. I don't actually get on them.
Yeah, I also just wanted to go back a little bit to your time in Miami. You were obviously there for 9 years, which is, a pretty long time. So I'm wondering if you could maybe tell us a little bit about what you learned there and how you maybe want to apply that to your time leading UCLA.
Well, I got there and I learned a lot, because one thing you learn, and not just in Miami, but in all the previous roles, is you should always expect that the unexpected will happen. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so that means being ready for the unexpected. Whatever you're not expecting, you should be ready. And it served me well. I arrived in Miami. The city had been 15 years without being hit by a hurricane. But on my second year, there was a hurricane. And we had to evacuate, for the first time in its history, the campus. Then came COVID. Again, I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen. It happened exactly in 2020. Because of my public health training, I decided to keep the university open for classes, giving the choice to students. But 80% of the students chose to come back when they heard my plan. It was not, and the parents heard my plan. It was not that it was just, oh, come on, nothing. No, it was taking it very seriously. We invested about $35 million to make the campus safe. So I learned, first, to always expect the unexpected. So when I was here, and on my second day wildfires erupted, I didn't know that was going to happen, but I was expecting that something unexpected was going to happen, and indeed it did happen. So that's a big lesson. Don't say this is not going to happen. Be ready. And that's not to feed your anxiety. That's actually to lower your anxiety. Because if you're ready and you have a mindset that you don't know exactly how it's going to be, but I'm going to be ready. When it comes, what have I learned? First, stay calm. Don't let that unexpected event get into you and control your feelings. Stay calm. Think of whatever it is, the wildfire or the executive orders that affect us. Think of it as an object that you are having here. You can look at it, you can turn it around, look at it indifferent, open it, it's a little box, understand what's going on, and then say, how am I going to tackle this thing? Don't let it eat into you. So those were important lessons. And the big lesson, having been first almost 7 years at Harvard as Dean of the School of Public Health, and then 9 years as president of a university, the big learning for me is that universities are essential institutions. They're essential for democracy. They need to be defended. And at a time when we have lost a lot of the public's trust, we need to actively regain that trust by doing what we do in great ways, by connecting to the community, by showing that we are here to serve society. And we do that by educating bright young people who go and do wonderful things. We do it by carrying out life-saving research. We do it by providing the top medical care. We're doing it through volunteer service. We need to be connected to society so that we regain that trust and we continue to have these absolutely indispensable universities. The former president of Harvard, when I was there, Drew Faust, she quoted a phrase that I've made my own. She said, higher education is the life insurance policy of democracy. And that's something I have learned, just to value fully. Although I had obviously studied in universities, I had worked in academia, but having those leadership positions just made me realize how absolutely replaceable universities are in the fabric of a democratic society.
Okay. I know that we're here in the music school today, and we heard a little bit in preparation for today about your connection to music. Tell us a little bit about that. What are some of your favorite pieces?
Well, my connection is very deep because my mother was a classical piano concert player. She performed. There are a few recordings of her. She gave up her career to raise her 7 children. And one of them, she had 7 children out of 6 pregnancies because I have a twin sister. So she made it her point to instill in us the love of music. And I actually ended up, 2 of my sisters are professional musicians. One is a piano player, concert level. She just finished her term as Dean of the School of Music at the National University of Mexico, which is the largest and oldest university in the country, founded in the 16th century. Another is a cello player. My twin is a gifted composer and singer in her younger years of more pop music. So music has been super important for me. So we grew up in that environment, loving music, especially classical music, but not only classical music. And then I eventually became a huge fan of opera. And because opera is almost like a perfect art form. It combines music, combines literature. The libretto is actually important. The story that is being told is very important. It combines, almost architecture, because you need to build a city, or by staging through it's theater at the same time as it is music, as much as it is music. So you build worlds where the opera is performed. So it is almost a perfect conjunction of many of the arts, and therefore it requires a confluence of creativities. And I think that's what universities do. They allow different creative minds. Some of those creative minds are in math, or are in basic science, or are in the social sciences. Some are artists, some are in the humanities, but they are all creative. They are thinking new things. And universities provide the place where they all meet and mix. And that's wonderful. And that was what my family, at a much smaller scale, obviously, did. My father was a very prominent physician and scientist. I have a brother who's an astrophysicist. I have another sister who's a doctor, and one who's in psychological counseling. So it was always this different mix of creativities. So that's what I like about opera. It kind of summarizes that idea that there are different forms of being created and they can all come together.
Yeah, you've talked a little bit about your time in Mexico, your background. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you think your experience working in, the Mexican government may have prepared you uniquely for this role.
Yeah, that's an example of an unexpected. And because I was expecting the unexpected, I think I was able to do a reasonably good job. Mm-hmm. I had never been in a position like that in government. But, there was a wonderful development in Mexico. Mexico had its first democratic election in the year 2000. Finally, a party from the opposition won after 72 years. Well, they had won before, but it wasn't recognized. It was then recognized in a historic moment. And the new president thought he would bring new faces to the government. And in particular, he thought it was important to have experts in the cabinet, which I think is not such a bad idea. So not for every position in the cabinet. Some positions in the cabinet are essentially political, but there are positions that have a technical core, and health is one of those. So I was, because I had always written in newspapers, people knew, and I was active, publishing op-eds and talking about what health policy changes needed to happen in Mexico. I was then working at the World Health Organization in Geneva. I was an executive director there, and I was recruited to become the Secretary of Health. It was an unexpected turn in my life, but I was ready for the unexpected, and it was one of the most intense and transformative experiences of my life. It taught me a lot of things. It taught me, first of all, the value of integrity. Government is a place where there can be many temptations to enrich yourself, to abuse the power, and you have to have a very clear North Star. That doesn't matter what you see others doing, you respond to your moral compass. And my moral compass is I don't enrich myself and I don't abuse power. I treat people fairly, with respect, and I am an honest person. I need to be able to see my children when I get home and see them in the eye. I need to be able to live with myself. So it was a very interesting environment to reinforce those values, which my parents taught me. But that was a great opportunity. Integrity is everything. It's not just being honest, incorruptible, but letting people that know that you are incorruptible. And that's super important. Second thing I learned is that if you do that, you have the voice to persuade. And I was very successful in getting every party to vote for a major health reform that extended coverage to 55 million of the poorest people. But people believed me when I told them, this is not for my personal advancement. I don't want to be a senator, a governor, a president. I just want you to approve this so we can help people. And people, I had credibility. So that's the second thing. You have to be credible, not by the words you say, but by the way you behave yourself. And then I learned to deal with conflict and to be a negotiator and try to mediate and make everyone feel that their voices are being heard, even if in the end the decision you make doesn't respond to everybody's preferences. So to get that piece of legislation, which probably was one of the most significant ones there's been in the country on health matters, through a multi-party democratic system with 32 governors from different parties, every one of those governors signed on to the scheme. So all of those were lessons. And by the way, the other thing I learned is public policy, as one of my colleagues at Harvard once said, has 3 pillars. Has a technical pillar. I was very good at that. That's what I had been studying all my life. But that's not enough. Sometimes we think that because we are experts and that's why I was recruited, that's it. No, there was a ethical pillar. You need to communicate the values. I would talk to representatives and I would tell them, the value here is we believe that the value of every human being is the same. Yes, we agree. Okay, well, the way you're allocating the budget, where you're allocating $4 per person to a certain group of people as opposed to others, particularly indigenous people being completely left, tells the world that I don't care what you say, but the value you are enacting is that you value life differently, according to what group a person belongs. No, we don't believe that. Okay, then pass this reform, because that's your chance to show that you value everyone. Everyone, access to high quality healthcare is a human right. Everyone should be able to have it. So technical pillar, ethical pillar, then you can build a political pillar. Political in the good sense of the word, not politicking, not horse trading. Political as reaching consensus around valued societal goals. And I was able to, as one of the non-political members of the cabinet, I was able to get a lot of agreements, but because I had that credibility and I was always explicit in the values that policies reflect. So it was a wonderful experience, and I've used a lot of those lessons in my subsequent journey.
Chancellor Block made it a habit of it to come and visit the Daily Bruin every quarter and talk about the university. Is that something you're planning to do?
I am planning to do that as soon as, I think right now because it's finals and there's commencement, but let's make a date that as soon as the new academic year starts, I will be at the Daily Bruin and we will have a good chat.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
It's been
Good to
nice
see
seeing
you.
you
Good
again.
luck with exams.
It was really lovely to meet you.
Very
Thank you
nice
for
to meet
taking
you.
the time. I appreciate
No, thank
it.
you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you.